A Jabbering Lip and a Foreign Tongue. Article written by Lew White. A black swan event is a term used to describe an unforeseen event that comes as a surprise with major effects. It is impossible to predict, but with the benefit of hindsight, it can be identified for what it is. For over 400 years, the KJV has trained the entire world to speak the English language. Now, a prophecy is being fulfilled. Average people are learning the Hebrew name of our Creator is Yahuwah, not God or Lord. Furthermore, the evidence of a huge conspiracy to hide the name is exposed. Putting things in order. The first Protestants remained Catholic. They only protested the head of the church being the papacy. The KJV is an Anglican Catholic translation. The KJV was used to teach English to the whole world for 400 years. It was based on the Latin Vulgate and now helps point out what was withheld from us. Truth is being restored and tradition is exposed. The famine of Yahuwah's word is ending as people are discovering the Hebrew name of our Creator. It is the key of knowledge held by those responsible for teaching all the nations the message of deliverance. The scriptures are Hebrew in origin. The English language fulfills a prophecy at Yeshayahu or Isaiah, chapter 28, verse 11, where it tells us Yahuwah will speak to this people through a jabbering lip and a foreign tongue, or language. Yahuwah allowed the British colonies to flourish around the globe just as the printing press was being invented. This spread the English language throughout all the earth, using the KJV to do so. The foreign students learned English by reading the KJV. This training has lasted 400 years. It prepared the world so all could understand the conspiracy to conceal the true name. The famine is over for those who are hungry for the highest of all things, the word and name of Yahuwah. Psalms, chapter 138, verse 2. The KJV. Evidence of a conspiracy. Translators hijacked the name. For those who diligently seek the truth, the tools are available to find the true name of our deliverer. Translations have hidden his name from us, and anyone can see this by reading the preface of their NIV. The NIV admits substituting the name with a device, replacing it with the English word Lord in all capital letters. This was inherited from the word Dominus in the Latin Vulgate. The English translations developed in several stages through men who were motivated for Yahuwah's word to be known by average people. In the year 1382, an English Catholic priest named John Wycliffe published an English translation of Jerome's Latin Vulgate. His extensive work laid the initial foundations for all the English translations that followed. Translations of Yahuwah's word into any language but Latin was met with deadly results. The translators and those helping them were killed, some having their bones exhumed and burned many years after they had died. Some people were burned alive for simply teaching their children to recite what is known as the Lord's Prayer in English. For over 1,200 years, Jerome's Latin Vulgate was the only text used by Catholics. Printing it in Latin was the first major project for Gutenberg's movable type printing press in the 1450s. The Gutenberg Bible was the basis for the English translation known as the Authorized Version, or King James Version. The Latin Vulgate used a code known as a Christogram for the name of Yahusha, IESV. This was a device used as a substitution for the proper name of our deliverer, and it was printed in the KJV. The Hebrew name Yahusha is not found, and instead the letters IESV are inserted to obscure the true name from the reader. I am your deliverer. 75 years after the printing of the Latin Vulgate by Gutenberg, William Tyndale published the Nazarene writings from Greek into English in the year 1526. In 1536, King Henry VIII arrested him and had him strangled and burned at the stake for his English publication, which he smuggled into England from Germany. This was the first major effort to mass-produce the scriptures in English. In 1890, James Strong produced a concordance listing for every word of the scripture based on the Anglican KJV. Each word could be easily associated with a Hebrew or Greek word it was translated from. It was then possible for anyone without a knowledge of Hebrew or Greek to research the texts, and it ignored the Latin entirely. Untrained people could perceive the conspiracy to hide the name of the Creator and shatter the language barrier that concealed the true name. The conspiracy to annul the practice of Torah and conceal the name began with the earliest beginning of Christianity. Constantine called the elders to meet at Nicaea in 325 to formulate the ground rules. Athanasius represented the views of Alexandria's didascalia. He defined Catholicism to be heresy. Arius denied the traditional doctrine of Trinity. Constantine imposed the death penalty on all who denied the Trinity doctrine. A belief in the Trinity is central to one's salvation according to Catholicism. In the year 1553, John Calvin burned Michael Servetus, an elder, at the stake at Geneva, Switzerland, for his denial of the Trinity. Michael believed Yahusha is Yahuwah in the flesh, and his blood bought us. See Acts chapter 20, verse 28, and Yeshayahu chapter 25, verse 9. Was King James a Catholic? King James was born in England into Anglican Catholicism. He was born June 19, 1566, at Edinburgh Castle, baptized on December 17, 1566, in a Catholic ceremony at Stirling Castle. He was 6 months old, an age we must acknowledge is too young to walk or have meaningful skills in speech. To believe his authorized version as superior to all other English versions, one must accept it is a Catholic translation. It inherited all the errors and omissions of the Latin Vulgate, including the word crux. The Greek word steros matches the Hebrew word nas and is a single upright pole. When Jerome Eusebius Sophronius translated the Hebrew and Greek into the Latin Vulgate in the late 4th century, he avoided the Latin word stero, which matched the Greek word steros, and inserted crux instead. Today's KJV uses the Latin-sourced word cross, the primary symbol of sun worship, first brought into the new faith called Catholicism during the reign of Constantine. Why call Yahuwah the Lord? The KJV eliminated the name Yahuwah by following the Latin word Dominus, used to replace the name Yahuwah at least 6,823 times in the Latin Vulgate. Dominus was the title for the sun deity Apollo, also known as Sol Invictus Mithras, pictured on coins with Constantine. Dominus means Lord. Lord is the best definition for the Hebrew word Baal. The third commandment forbids the destruction of the name. To insert Lord as a proper noun, Baal, in place of the name Yahuwah, violates the first, second, and third commandments. IESV is seen in the first printings of the KJV, underlined IESV. Later editions of the KJV introduced the name Jesus for the first time on this planet. Prior to the 17th century, no one had ever seen or heard of this name, yet all Christendom is united under it. Jesus is not derived from Hebrew. The name Yahusha means I am your deliverer, meaning Yahuwah is our deliverer. Yeshayahu, or Isaiah, chapter 43, verse 3. Catholicism has defined a Catholic as having a belief in, quote, one God in three persons. Athanasius, at Nicaea, year 325. This triune idea originated with Nimrod, his wife, and Nimrod's reincarnation as Tammuz. This downloaded into Hinduism's Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, and spread into all other trinities found all around the world among pagans. Constantine set up the policies of Christianity at the Council of Nicaea in the year 325 CE AD. Easter, Ostara to witches, was adopted and universalized at this same council. Yahuwah is not fond of mankind's festivals. I have hated, I have despised your festivals, and I am not pleased with your assemblies. Amos, chapter 5, verse 21. Constantine ordered that Catholicism would have nothing in common with the hostile rabble of the Yahudim. He abandoned Passover and all the appointed times of Yahuwah. Our biggest problem is syncretism, the blending of foreign ideas with the truth. Constantine established his Sunday law for the empire in 321 CE AD to honor the sun, his sole invictus, Apollo. Later, at the year 370, at Laodicea, the weekly seventh-day Sabbath was outlawed. Another KJV error. 28 times we see the word Pashka as the Greek transliteration of the word Pesach, Passover. In the book of Acts, Luke refers to the Feast of Unleavened Bread. He uses the word Pesach to apply to the entire period of Matzah and never uses the word Easter. Easter did not mix in until Constantine's time, centuries later. Luke would never use Pesach to refer to a heathen rite like Easter, and yet in the KJV we see the word Easter at Acts chapter 12, verse 4. Even the Latin Vulgate transliterates the word Pashka. The tradition of Easter was so ingrained in the Anglican Catholic translators, they opted to alter the meaning of the word. In every other use of the word Pashka, it is translated as Passover. All other translations have corrected this error, but the KJV defenders still hold on to this blatant mistake, making it appear that the governor intended to release a Yehudi prisoner for his own pagan festival. This makes no sense and ignores the Hebrew term. Christianity has adopted the word Easter, the name for Ishtar. Yahusha is our Passover lamb, or the Paschal lamb, not our Easter lamb. Church, kirch, circus. King James ordered the use of the word church. This word was only associated with pagan shrines, as Tyndale used it twice to do so. He was burned at the stake for using the word congregation, making no distinction between the laity, common people, and the hierarchy. King James was baptized as a baby in a Catholic ceremony, never observed Yahusha's Sabbath, did not call on the name of Yahuwah, nor guard the everlasting covenant. They were Catholic. When James was around 40, in 1605, Jesuits, led by Guy Fawkes, plotted to blow up the king and parliament in a gunpowder plot. But the conspirators were discovered just before the fuse was lit. If the plot had succeeded, the KJV would not exist. Yahuwah's hand was in this to prepare the world to receive his true name. Even after more than 400 years later, those who do not call on the name of Yahuwah and guard the Shabbat are not Yahuwah's people. See Psalms chapter 79, verse 6, and Isaiah chapter 56, verse 6. The eternal sign between Yahuwah and his people is the sign of the Sabbath. This is proof that Christians are not Yahuwah's people. A Catholic council proclaimed Christians must work on the day Yahuwah ordered no work. Quote, Christians must not Judaize by resting on the Sabbath, but must work on that day, rather honoring the Lord's day, and, if they can, resting then as Christians. But if any found to be Judaizers, let them be an anathema from Christ." End quote. They outlawed the Sabbath day. We have to choose either to obey Catholicism or to live by every word that proceeds from the mouth of Yahuwah. Matthew chapter 4, verse 4. There is no other way to live. The restoration of the name of Yahuwah is a black swan event for the whole world. If you understand, repent, and obey His word, and call upon His name, He is speaking to you in a jabbering lip and a foreign tongue. This is the way. Walk in it. Yeshayahu chapter 30, verse 21. Thank you very much for listening. If you would like any more information on this subject, please visit torazone.net.